Welcome to the Retay Roundtable podcast, brought to you by Retay USA. I'm your host, Jesse.
Hey, I'm trying to record a podcast over here.
So why switch to Retay?
Sounds like drill.
We're already recording, you know that. We let everything slide through here. So, hey, look, real quick, Will, we do this every time. I think I surprised you again. We've got to have a better plan for our podcast. But at this point, I kind of like what we're doing.
Yeah.
I just surprised you with guests.
Yeah, that's true.
If you were to think about in the past, let's say year and a half of social media around Retay, who is our most posted person? Ed Wall, right?
Absolutely.
Ed Wall is a media confidant for me because I always am bouncing things off of Ed. Ed is a producer of multiple things, and we'll get more into that. But with Lost Break on the Mossy Oak Go channel,
Yep.
And then Crash Landing, which is a super cool thing that he kicked off last year with Archie and those guys up in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But I have to speak on one more thing. He is also the inaugural person to have his own Retay Signature Series T-shirt. Ed Wall, welcome to the Retay Roundtable.
Man, I appreciate y'all having me.
Man, anytime. Look, so I'm a little disappointed. You know, Billy and Dennis, they stole you right out from underneath of me. Got you on a podcast a couple weeks ago. It was awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna obviously those guys are more put together than we are. So we're gonna wing it a little bit. And we're gonna catch up and talk. And I know the one thing when we kind of pose some questions out to social media, the biggest thing that we get back from guys outside of the hunting realm and the gun questions and all that is really, hey man, how do I get into this? Or hey, I'm a freelancer. Can I come over and work for you guys? Hey, I'll do anything. I'll sell my firstborn kid and I'll start taking pictures for free, right? You have been the embodiment of what it is to get started in this industry, man. So real quick, I want to hear bio. I want to hear the Ed Wall spill about where you're from, not to give you a whole, hour rundown here, but tell us more about yourself and where you kind of got started at in the outdoor media creation.
All right. From Brandon, Mississippi. And honestly, I bought a camera years ago, coming up about 10 years ago. Honestly, just as I've always enjoyed filming hunts. I used to be a big deer hunter, and anytime we go deer hunting or turkey hunting or anything, I always enjoyed filming hunts.
Yep.
But I'd never really owned a camera. It was always just about film, and it was just for me to keep myself, nothing elaborate. But
what was your first camera? What was that? What was your very first piece of equipment that you purchased?
Coming up about 10 years ago, I bought a Canon 7D Mark II.
Okay.
Which is a pretty good, it's a little bit higher end camera, but I honestly just wanted to get a camera that I could take duck hunting and take pictures with me and my buddies and whatever. And I had my dog, and I bought a Canon 7D Mark II and a Canon 28-300 lens, which was, I didn't know anything about cameras, didn't know anything about lenses. So a buddy of mine said, hey, this is what you ought to get. If you get this set up, you're good to go. And so that's what I did. And took a bunch of really bad pictures for a lot of years.
I'm still doing that, so don't feel bad.
Same here, man. I was watching educational videos yesterday on just trying to learn new stuff.
That's awesome.
But I just started taking pictures, and I really enjoyed it. And had this desire to actually learn and get better at it. And early on was lucky enough to take one or two, at least one. I took one good picture in the first few years. It's still one of my favorites. It was just complete luck, but I just happened to take a picture of it. This is a picture of my dog looking around a tree that has been used a bunch. Awesome. And it was just pure luck. But no, I just wanted to get better at it and started trying to learn what I could, and did a lot of practice. Like I said, and it takes years of taking a lot of bad pictures. And Absolutely. At some point along that journey, I got a little better, and I guess couple companies kind of noticed and were reposting some of my pictures on Instagram. And real early on, Drake Waterfowl approached me about being on their creative team. And so
very cool.
Did a bunch of stuff with them. And then I think like the first company that actually paid me money was a company called Ren and Ivy. They wanted me to do like this. They were launching a bunch of new products and wanted me to take pictures of them. And so we kind of set up this shoot and like my first actual paid job. And then from there, it just kind of, I guess, went forward from there. And
yeah. So the trickle down effect, and I got to ask you, because what were you doing? And I know the answer to this because we talk about it all the time. We have a mutual guy that we love to watch play on the weekends. What were you doing before you got into full time being on the camera, behind the camera, and producing?
I was actually I was selling in the medical sales field, and years ago, when competitive bidding went into place, I got laid off, or my position got kind of just, they did away with it. And so I was actually had started brokering freight, and liked it initially, but it was kind of,
it's not in the outdoor world for sure.
No, definitely not. And then I was doing it, and it was all right. And all of a sudden, I noticed that I do a bunch of media stuff outside of the outdoor industry as well. I've got a bunch of clients, and one of my biggest clients, it was more and more each week, was wanting me to shoot content for them. And I was like, man, this is taking up a lot of my time. And
and that was in a construction company, right? Like they're a roofing company?
It's Watkins Construction. It's a roofing company, and it got to where I was like, man, that's becoming pretty steady. And I had a couple others that I was doing, and so I just decided, hey, I'm gonna make a go with this full time. And it's honestly, the outdoor industry's been great, but having those non-outdoor industry clients has been, that's kind of what gave me the confidence to kind of do this full time.
Right. So really, I mean, that jump had to be huge. I mean, you and family and wife and everything included there, you took a big leap here. I mean, that's a big thing from having that steady, day-to-day thing to, I wouldn't call it freelancing because you obviously got into it at the right, on the right angle of having customer bases set up. And then Ren and Ivy and then Drake and then working with us and everybody else that you do work with. But by the way, you can't look through social media and not see an Ed Wall picture.
No.
Whether he gets accredited for it or not, because
right.
I know a lot of people love just taking his photos and using them. And there's probably like an Ed Wall Indian account somewhere over in India that's just blowing up right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
but on the same aspect of that, you missed out. You didn't tell everybody. Ed, let's talk about your golf life. All right, so Ed is not just a weekend golfer, Will. Ed's not just like let's go play a round, let's go play a 4-man scramble. Ed's a golfer. So tell us a little bit. Now. Well, not right now, but when you did, tell us about it a little bit. I mean, because look, there's a lot of athletes out there. The merge over from athletics to hunting is synonymous, right? It's very hard to almost even find somebody who wasn't in the outdoors that didn't play some sort of sport growing up, or even college or pro or whatever it might have been. So tell us about your golf game.
Well, it's hopefully in about another week it'll be back on track. But it's been a long duck season, long turkey season. But I played college golf and then did the professional thing for a little while. And it's tough out there. There's a lot of good players.
Absolutely.
And so I found that out and did that for a little while. I went back and finished up. I got my degree. And so got my amateur status back years ago, and have just enjoyed playing a bunch of amateur stuff, and have done fairly well at it. As far as Mississippi golf and stuff, won a couple state 4-balls. Buddy of mine, I won the USGA qualifier, I guess, I'll say about 4 or 5 years ago. And so we got to go play in the National 4-ball at Wingfoot, New York, which is a pretty cool deal.
Yeah. So like I said, not just a weekend guy.
No.
I can still get it around a little bit.
I bet. And then on top of that, man, it's also kind of merged over into your world. We've been pulling for him. It's so much better to watch golf. And trust me, I watch golf religiously, no matter what it is. I mean, if it's 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm trying to find out what, European tour's on. But like, Harold Varner, and we'll jump into dude, he's been number one, been killing it this year, right? HV3.
Dude, he's such a good dude. He's playing so good. I mean, I'm so happy for him. He works hard at it. I actually met him a few years ago hunting at Straight Lake in Arkansas, and
just randomly, right?
Just like I was doing some stuff at Straight Lake, and they had booked a hunt there, and Max told me he was coming, so Max knew I was a big golfer, and he wanted me to come take some pics for him and stuff, and
nice.
So I went over and met him. We kind of hit it off. I really didn't even mention that I was a golfer to him because I mean he's one of the top players and he's one of the top 40 in the world right now.
Yeah.
Kind of like telling Michael Jordan how you used to be good in high school at basketball.
Look, I just had the same thing when we were at the Ducks Unlimited Festival down, and him as well. But Jay Bruce, who is the new owner of Sure Shot Game Calls, who by the way is one of the nicest people in the world.
Jay's one of my favorite dudes I've met.
Man.
I went and stayed at his house a couple weeks ago. He's unbelievable.
Nice. Yeah. So, being a 3-time, all-star, no slouch in his career whatsoever in Major League Baseball. And somebody said baseball, because actually I was watching a little bit from afar, and no one really noticed him as Jay Bruce. It was amazing to me. Like, these guys were coming up and be like, well, let me see what you got on a single read. And then they talk about calls and everything, and people were just walking away. And I asked him, I was like, man, has anybody even noticed you? And he's like, man, not really. It's awesome. Because it was his first trade show.
Right.
Like, they brought Sure Shot out and everything. And I was, like, I messed up. I was like, we started talking about baseball, and I said, back when I played independent league, and I was like, oh, you just did it. Like, I literally just said to the guy who's a 3-time all-star that I used to play baseball. So I understand what you mean. Trust me.
Yeah. And so, but Harold, he and Archie met at the Waste Management in Phoenix.
Yep.
And when I was out at Crash a couple seasons ago, Archie said, HV3. And I said, yeah. And he said, you got his number? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, we'll send him a video. And he just sent him a video. And so they met out at Phoenix, and he came out to Crash, and we did like an episode on him. Yep. He's a good dude, man.
Yeah, man.
HV3. I'm really glad to see him doing well. He is having a heck of a year.
Yeah, won the Saudi Invitational, comes in top 10 in the players. Like, he's just absolutely – and man, I could – honestly, we should make a whole golf podcast because I could talk about golf for hours. But anyway, that kind of also talks about the synergy between, athletics and hunting and everything else, and the cool people that you get to hang out with, because you put some pretty prolific people on camera this year. And Lost Break's been doing that – or I'm sorry, Crash Landing's been doing that since the inception of it, but it's really neat to have that. Archie Bradley, obviously now Archie's out in the Angels, right?
Yeah, he's pitching for the Angels. Yep. It's Archie's one of like the nicest human beings, and he's just got this personality. Like, you ever met these guys that everybody just loves being around them?
Infectious.
Like, they're just a great energy, just a great person. Like, that's Archie.
Yep.
So everywhere he's been in his career, he was out in Arizona for years, and then Philly last year.
Yeah.
But everybody just loves Archie. And so
not a lot of guys in Major League Baseball, by the way, and if you're a baseball guy, realize this, not a ton of middle relief pitchers have a bobblehead night. Archie Bradley had a bobblehead night in Philly because that's how much the fans responded to this guy. So that's just an accreditation to his character. But it's pretty cool, man. And what you guys got going on is amazing out there. But let's jump back real quick and talking about your career, talking about how you got into things. And like I said, the number one thing that we hear is like, man, there's a ton, and social media has allowed a lot of guys to have this platform, right? Everybody is now a content creator. By the way, I hate the word content creator. Hate it. It's like my least favorite word in the world. Content as a whole, but it is, right? So it is content, but it's giving these guys a platform to be able to drop back, take some really good pictures. Maybe they're not into photography. I call myself an amateur professional photographer by the teeth. I'm not, right? But I love to see and take pictures. I love to take pictures and see what I can create. I don't understand a lot of settings. I don't understand a lot of stuff. But what you've accomplished in a very short period of time, you now have started mentoring a lot of these younger guys.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's there's so much talent out there, and some of these young guys, like that was always kind of my hang up with kind of trying to grow my business was, I having other camera guys I could trust that were going to put out quality work.
Right.
And I kind of was lucky enough I followed some guys, Justin Fortune and Matt Harrison, Mark Wheat, guys like that
Yep.
I've been following for a while. And finally I was just like reached out and I was like, hey man, look, I've got some projects going on. I've really enjoyed your stuff. I think you do a great job, and I'd love you come work with me. And they've all been huge help. All those guys are just uber talented.
Yeah. And good guys too. And I've met all those guys. So, yeah.
Mark helped me, was a big help on crashes. He and Justin and Matt, all of them, but he's actually a teacher that he's quit his job and he's going to do it full time now. So he's
awesome.
going to help me out going forward. But yeah, having those guys, man, it's super good to have those guys that have, hell, they're teaching me things too. So it's not like I'm just teaching them.
Absolutely. Well, that's what's cool about it, Ed, honestly, like to see that progression and to know that you're out there helping guys. And maybe, look, if there's a guy sitting in his truck right now listening to this and he's like, you know what, I can take pictures. I'm really, I'm passionate about it. And I know there's a lot of those guys. At NWTF this year, man, we had 20 guys standing in our booth at one point just taking pictures. Younger guys, right? Because they were passionate about it and they're trying to catch their break. What would you give and this is the advice segment here on the Retay Roundtable. What advice would you have and be honest with it, because it's not easy to get into. We all talk about taking these leaps on our dreams and stuff, but what is the number one thing you can tell guys who are looking to get into, especially the outdoor space? But it might be sports, it might be, man, maybe somebody's really passionate about taking prom pictures. Like what is your number one thing you can tell these guys?
Like when I started taking pictures, honestly, the way I looked, and this is going to sound weird, but the way I looked at the world just, I guess at some point kind of started changing to where all day, every day, when I'm out doing something, I've always got a camera. If I'm riding my truck sitting next to me, if I see a group of ducks on the side of the road, I'm going to figure out how to get over there to them and take a picture. And like, I'm constantly just looking nonstop at, hey, that'd be a cool picture, and go take it, regardless of what it is.
Right.
And just really, honestly, just practice, just taking a lot of pictures and learning as much as you can.
Yeah.
And then as far as trying, I get asked this question all the time in messages and stuff, how do I get into the outdoor industry? And I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer to that. All I can do is tell somebody how I did it. And was, like I said, just keep taking pictures till you start getting some good ones. And if your good ones are good enough, people are going to notice.
Yeah.
And,
it's all subjective, right? Like it's subjective to the eye of the beholder, I guess you would say, right? And I know a lot of people are different, and some people have a really cool angle on what they do. Like Matt Harrison, and we can talk about Matt a little bit, because I think the world of Matt Harrison, by the way. I think I don't think you're going to ever find a nicer person. The whole family, like everybody's great.
For sure.
But didn't have a huge long background in photography. He literally just started working his butt off. I mean, that kid was putting out. He probably posts 3 times a day still today. Just trying to catch that, and I think that's a big part of it. But like you said, what's a good picture to you might not be a great picture to somebody else. But luckily enough for what we do, it falls perfectly for us, right? And that's a huge thing to try to get young guys, especially because it's not easy. I'm sure it's not easy. And you said it yourself. You had a bunch of side gigs. Like, you were keeping it going. I seen you literally on a roof the other day.
Yeah. I'm going to be on a roof this week. so, I mean, that's what it is. It's just, from getting in the outdoor industry, I did for years, did a lot of trade with companies. They would send me free gear for pictures, and that was great. I mean, it was, when you got huge companies like Drake and Retay, and that are people that are sending you free gear that you don't have to buy. It's awesome. And at some point it got to where, when companies started paying me, that, hey, you kind of move from that level of doing trade to actually getting where you feel comfortable charging people.
Right.
And I'll be honest, like when you're just doing trade or doing it for free or whatever, you kind of get what you pay for. But once companies start writing you checks for it, there's definitely a level of nervousness where you've got to come up with some good stuff, or else, it's like, hey, I'm getting paid for this now. This has really got to be good. And so that would be my thing, is just reach out to companies and try to get on their radar. and do some stuff for them. And if you're good at it and passionate about it, it'll all come around in the end. And I guess my thing's always been to just make sure whoever you're doing something for, you do right by them. Whatever you promise them, give them more than that. And, it'll all work out in the end. And that's kind of what I've tried to do. I think any company that has worked with me knows if I tell you, whatever I promise you, whatever our contract says I'm going to get you, that's the
10
bare
times more.
minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trust me, I can attest to this because we work directly together, and I'm not just blowing smoke because you're on the podcast here. Like if Ed says, hey, this is going to be 25 images and 3 30-second films, I'm literally having to build out like more like infrastructure in our Dropbox because Ed's going to have 750 pictures and 30-second films. So it's awesome, and we appreciate that very much because you do a great job at the business side, especially.
Hey Ed, I've got a question for you.
All right, what you got?
When you, I guess it's not really directed towards me, just kind of with the listeners out there that might be listening to what we're talking about. When you go and realize you need help on a project, and you found a few guys that you work well with, do you look for them to kind of see through the camera like you do, or do you look for something different so you're offering more of a package?
A little bit of both, honestly.
You know what I mean?
It's, yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, that was always one of my biggest hangups was being able to hire somebody that I felt comfortable that if I send them out there, I know they're going to produce the quality of work that I'm wanting to give a customer. And the guys that I've had help me this past year and a half, like I watched their stuff for like a year before I ever contacted them.
Gotcha.
And there's different, but like for instance, Justin Fortune is a guy that he's done a whole bunch of editing for me, and he is so
top
unbelievable
notch.
at it. Yeah, his editing is next level. He's so much better than I am that it's crazy. And so I know if I take something to him, I don't tell him anything. I'm just like, hey, or maybe like, hey, it needs to be a fast beat type track or something, but I want his vision in that edit because I know that's why I'm taking it to him, is because I don't want to really micromanage his editing ability because he's a lot better than I am.
Gotcha.
But guys like Matt and Mark, like Mark is phenomenal. He can go quarterback a shoot, right now, and I have full confidence in what he can do. Cool. And the first time he came out and worked with me, I think he was a little nervous, and
how could you not be? I'd be like, man, I don't even know what to do. Like, I'd probably it's one of those things. Like, you can go practice every day of the year, and then they throw you on the mound in Game 7 of the World Series, and you forget everything you've ever done.
Yeah, he the first morning we filmed, he was just filming birds. We were duck hunting, and I was kind of doing the in the blind stuff, the close ups, over the shoulder stuff, and I had him just like, man, look, you just sit here, and all you do is film ducks coming in. And I said, if it's ones or twos, try to get in there as tight as you can. If it's 3 or 4 more in a group, kind of go wide angle, try to get the whole group in. But on the singles and pairs, get in there as tight as you can. And after the morning hunt, we kind of looked through some footage, and I was like, man, that's good. I was like, try to get in there a little bit tighter on those ones and twos. He's like, yeah. And I knew, he was scared he was going to miss it. Because the tighter you get in on a duck coming in, the easier it is to miss.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, look, man, I was like, dude, you got this. I wouldn't have you out here if I didn't have complete confidence in you. And it was like, when he heard that, it was, from then on, he's just killed it. Like, he totally just, so I want him, like, it might be, like, we'll have like a meeting and kind of say, hey, here's what we're going to try to film. But I really want him to film, like I tell Mark, dude, you just film it the way you film it if I wasn't here. If this was 100% you film it, because they've got a great eye, all of them.
Yeah. I think that's a great segue. Do you have a playbook when you go out there? Do you have, say, like, and I hear it all the time, like I said, amateur professional here. Do you have a shot list? Do you have hey, I want to capture this today. I need to get this on film. I need to get that on film. Is there literally a structure to what you're doing? Because I'll tell you right now, I have like ADD when it gets out there, or ADHD, and I will completely I'll be like, oh, squirrel. And I'll just start taking pictures of a squirrel, right? Like I'm just terrible at structure there. So tell me, what's your game plan? What's your day of, kind of walking into a shoot?
Yeah, it depends on, it kind of varies from project to project. If it's, like if we're filming at Lost Break, we're just going to go film it. And then I'm going to kind of base the storyline around what happens.
Gotcha.
Type deal. There have been projects, like I shot that one duck video a couple years ago, and where a buddy of mine, he had a 12-year-old son who had Down syndrome, who I had taken hunting before, and he was wanting to take him again. And he's like, man, if there's any way he could shoot a duck. And I was like, I can make that happen. And we went to Straight Lake and filmed a youth hunt. He was the only one there. It's just him. And I had already filmed every frame of that hunt in my head before we ever went. And it's like been the only time it's worked out exactly like I saw it. So sometimes I already know the shots I want to get because I know the storyline going in.
Right.
And so I had these shots in my head. And then sometimes you're just going out there and you just film what's in front of you and then let the story come to you.
Gotcha.
So, there's also certain shots that I know would be, depending on the place you are, that you want to get in it regardless of whether you have a plan or not.
The landscape and everything like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But with it being a hunt, I mean, it's got to be one of the hardest things because nothing's guaranteed. I mean,
correct.
Yeah.
You never know.
If you're trying to take pictures for Fashion Week and you have to have X model walk down X walkway to get X picture, it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
Now you have to get X duck to get in X X flyway to be on X lake and then to be in X pocket to do it all right. So I can imagine it's got to be stressful at the same time. But so I know you do a ton of actual filming. Does it change when you go to do product pictures? So like say if you're in your mind you're like, hey, I've got to get this picture today of this product that we're shooting for. Does that make it easier for you, or does that still kind of come in the same way of where you're trying to kind of roll with the punches?
Yeah, it's honestly what's crazy is, and it's not like I just one day said, hey, this is going to be my style. It just kind of, I just point the camera at what I see, and what comes out is what comes out. It's not like I just said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. But I guess my style, if you wanted to say it, is kind of, I guess, a candid. You very seldom see somebody looking at the camera when I'm taking a picture.
Right.
I like those real moments when, to me, the best pictures are when someone doesn't know they're having their picture taken, because you're getting a real reaction or a real emotion or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we're out there filming, if you've got 5-6 sponsors who are also wanting pictures, you've got to have that, keep that in the back of your mind, that even though you're filming, you got to be also looking for those those stills that are like, hey, they've got their gun leaned up right here. That's a cool shot. Let's go ahead and get that.
So, I'll elaborate on that real quick, because I think that where we are in the gun world, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it has to be one of the easier products to get in the picture, because no matter what you're doing, you got your gun in your hand, right? How hard is it to get like a boot company? Because like honestly, like if you're not like, it's got to be tough. Or like maybe the guy's like, man, can you push my Hanes underwear this week? Like, how are you going to get that on film? Like, it's just not easy to do, and it's not something like our guns are in. I mean, they're literally in the camera pretty much 90% of the time, so it's easier for us to see that all the time. But how do you balance that between the brands that literally aren't always in the picture or in focus?
It's honestly, there's stuff that's really easy to photograph, guns, apparel, decoys, stuff like that's really easy. And then there's some that are really tough. Shells are, to me, one of the biggest challenge there is for a shell company to kind of get creative with it. Yeah. And I mean, if we're like, we had Migra sponsored us this past season at Crash, and so I know that the guns and the waders and stuff are going to be in picture, and the decoys are going to be in pictures regardless. And so it's easier with them. So I'm constantly looking for, while we're out there, if somebody's reaching in, if I see somebody reaching in and grab shell out of something. I'm like, hey, do that again. I'll just say, hey, do that again. And I'll see that shot and like, hey, let me take that picture real quick.
Right.
So yeah, some stuff's really easy. Some stuff's really tough. Boots can be tough because a lot of times you're cutting it off at the knees.
Right. Yeah, you're just not focusing in on somebody walking all the time. That's where I couldn't imagine. Like, that's just where your mind and my mind separate, because I don't have that in me. And I think it takes a really special person to be able to do that. So looking back, and now that you see it, because talking about products, but one of the things that you've done, I think, exceptionally well is your actual wildlife photography. Like, some of the stuff, let me step back a second. Your truck has to be huge, because you said I always have my camera in my truck with me. Your lens is legitimately the size of like an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, so my passenger seat, I'll scoot it all the way back, and it fits in there perfectly up against the back of my seat, the passenger seat of my truck, and the glove box. And so
nice.
I ride around with my camera hooked up to that lens all of duck season. So
yeah.
If I'm driving down the road and see some ducks or whatever it is, I'll pull over and might spend an hour just taking pictures.
Yeah.
And taking duck pictures is, I could sit out there for 12 hours straight and take duck pictures. I literally love doing that.
Well, one of the times I talked to you this year, you were headed to Arkansas. It was after the season, I believe, just to go get on a refuge.
Yeah. Usually about the first 2 or 3 weeks after duck season, over the years, I've kind of developed a spot where I've gotten permission, or I found places that I know that ducks are going to be after the season, and I'll go spend a couple days. One of them's down in Lafayette, Louisiana, it's like an hour south there. Or 45 minutes south there. It's about 5.5 hours from my house, and I'll go for like 3 days, go get a hotel room for a couple days, because they've got these 2 big refuges down there, and I know I can get a bunch of pictures. And this year, when I was going down there, I had spent some time with Jay Bruce. You're talking about him earlier, and he's like, "Man, I'm right there in Beaumont. Why don't you just come stay with me? And we've got an awesome refuge over here too."
That's awesome.
And so I went and stayed with him, and he got to go check out the Sure Shots shop, and ended up going to the refuge he had told me about, and got some really good stuff, and actually got a picture of a hybrid while I was there.
Nice. So that's what I was kind of leaning to on this whole, wildlife photography thing. And I'm going to come back to a certain picture that you took of a turkey, and we're going to plug that. And this is going to be like a marketing campaign for that picture, but you know what I'm talking about. But as far as you've gone into these refuges and on these hunts and stuff, what is the one thing that sticks out the most in your mind? Like, what's the one picture you're like, I know what it is for me. It's that picture we put on a t-shirt, right? Which really just had ducks in the shadows of everybody in the landscape. But what is the one species that you're like, I can't believe I got it? I've been, this has been on my bucket list for years. What's the one picture that you're like, this made my day, or it made my life, or made my week?
As far as ducks,
or whatever. I mean, it could be a albino elk. I don't care. Whatever. I don't even know if they have albino elks, but anything.
I mean, there's obviously, I guess the one picture that sticks out in my mind is the asphalt picture I took years ago that, it won the DU Photo of the Year deal like 3 or 4 years ago, where the whole lake was frozen except for that this one spot they were keeping open. It's like a 550 acre lake. They probably had 5 acres of it open, but you couldn't fit another duck in there. And there was like
That's pretty cool.
13 bald eagles sitting up there, swimming down there, picking them off. And like, I got a picture of 2 bald eagles fighting over a green head, and a couple bands. But
that's awesome.
I wanted to get like this picture. They were too far out there, and so like an idiot, I walk out on this ice that I didn't know how deep was. In hindsight, it's for sure the dumbest thing I've ever done. But I was like, I've got to get this picture, and they're just too far. And so I walked a couple hundred yards out on this ice by myself, not knowing how deep it was. And I got this picture of all of them getting up. And I think there's I don't remember, 10 or 11 different species of ducks in this one picture. There's a black duck in there. And I guess it's the most notable picture I've taken, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in hindsight, it was very, very dumb. And,
well, working off of that and talking about all the publication and stuff. So I guess, on the social media things where a lot of people just get to see your, 25 years ago before social media, a photographer had to get their stuff published, right? It had to be in a magazine, had to be on a cover of something that's getting sent out in the mail. How does that, and man, it's got to be one of the hardest things because there's a ton of photographers out there, but you've been published quite a few times through a lot of incredible magazines and just wrote an article for one, right?
Yeah. Just did a feature article for Wildfowl magazine. I think it's like, it's coming up close to like 100 different magazines.
That's
now,
awesome.
But, the big one for me was, Ducks Unlimited. I wanted to get one of my pictures in Ducks Unlimited magazine, and every year they have this big photo contest where they get tens of thousands of entries, and like 8 pictures make it into the magazine because they have 3 categories, and they put the winner and runner up in each category, and then they have an overall winner and an overall runner up. And so like that was like one of my biggest goals in photography was to be one of those 8. And so like there was a 3-year stretch where I won the retriever category, and I won the overall category, and then I won the retriever category 3 years in a row. And John Hoffman, who's the photo editor for DU,
Yep.
actually sent me an email and was like, "Hey, congratulations!" And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And he said, "Hey, we'd rather you not enter anymore, and we'd rather you just take pictures for us, and we'll pay you for them." And I was like, "Well, that's even better."
Yeah.
And so that's been really cool to be able to see your stuff in DU magazine.
Yeah. Was that the
I
first
guess
article you wrote in Wildfowl?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm done for that. Like I'm so far out of that league, it's not even funny. I can't articulate and put it down on paper if I had my life depended on it.
So Skip Knowles, who's the editor, had asked me about writing this, and it was about dogs, and mainly about my dog. And it's like, man, he said, can you write? And I was like, well, I can type. I don't know if I can write. But I was like, I can make it sound.
How good are your editors? That's the question.
Yeah, exactly. I can use spell check and grammar check. That's about it. But I guess I sent it to a buddy of mine, a couple of guys who are actually writers, and they were like, "Hey, that's I don't really have a whole lot of notes." And I was like, "Okay, well, that makes it feel a little bit better."
Nice. That's awesome, man. And it's so cool to see that fruition, that whole thing come to fruition now that you're in DU, you're in Wildfowl, you're in all of these different places. What's one thing that you wish you had more time to get into? Is it like, would you be interested in big game or like, I guess coming back to it, and let's talk about it before I get too far away. The single picture of that turkey you took that needs to, by the way, this is the start of the campaign for it, needs to be on the Mississippi State stamp and cover of their magazine this year.
Yeah, and so nobody's ever seen it, except maybe, a handful of people have seen it. You've seen it, obviously, but I've never posted it there. It's in my opinion, the best turkey picture I've ever taken. It was my buddy Matthew Reeves, lives about 30 minutes from here, and he's got like 10 acres behind his house, and he had these 4 longbeards that were roosting there, and I was getting in there like an hour before daylight every day because you had to get right up under them. Because he only has 10 acres. They were roosted right there on this little lane, and it was the only place I could take this picture. And that particular morning, they pitched down and went the other way, and I was like, man, I've been sitting here since 4:30 in the morning, and I came out, and there's a field down there, and I saw him down there, and I looked and noticed that a hen was walking towards me, so I literally belly crawled with a camera and a tripod, my big lens, to get to this pine tree, got set up, and turkeys come through, and this one longbeard just starts strutting for literally 5 seconds. And I just had the perfect light, perfect angle, and got it. And so I've been holding it for a couple of years now because I wanted to get it on the Mississippi Sportsman's license.
Hey, I can also figure out how to cut this out if you don't want it on the podcast. But that picture, I hope, and I'm telling you, like, it is one of the best turkey pictures. I'm a turkey nut, but one of the best pictures. It almost doesn't even look like a picture. It almost looks like a rendering. Like, it almost looks like, everything was too perfect for that second.
Yeah. When when I clicked that shutter, I knew. I was like, man, that's going to be a good one. And he
Do
just
you know
showed it
that?
for just. What's that?
Do you know that? I must be. I'm not even on your. I mean, close to be on your level. Because a lot of times I'll take a picture and be like, nah, it might turn out right. But like, do you know when you click the shutter on a picture, you're like, got it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So especially like with ducks, it's crazy. I took a picture of a shoveler years ago, and when it came by, obviously there's a point at where your subject is perfectly front lit,
Right.
and you're talking about 5 yards, 10 yards, one way or the other, and you're going to get a little bit of shadow on them, somewhere on them. But when you hit them dead center at like 12 o'clock, perfectly front lit, he came flying by, and it was right in that golden hour. And I knew he hit it perfect. And before I even looked at it, I was like, "Ooh, that's going to be a good one." And yeah, every now and then I'll hit it before I even look at it. I know that I hit it just right, and it's going to be good. And that turkey picture this morning, as soon as I hit it, I was like, "Man, I think that's going to be a good one."
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I haven't ever posted it anywhere, and I've been holding on to it because I've done some stuff with Mississippi Outdoor Magazine and was wanting to try to get. I've got it and a deer picture that I've never done anything with it because I wanted to try to get them on the Mississippi Sportsman's license, and so I'm still holding out, trying to make that happen, but we'll see.
I'm in. We're going to start a campaign. I mean, I've at one point in my life, I'm probably going to run for politics, so this would be a good trial run for me. I want Ed Wall on the Mississippi Sportsman's license.
I appreciate it. I guess that's one of my goal. You know, I've grown up in Mississippi, lived here my whole life. I've hunted and fished here my whole life, and I think that's one of the photography goals I haven't got to yet is that I want a picture of mine on the Mississippi Sportsman's license.
Nice.
To me, that would be the coolest thing.
Yeah, man. That leads back into what I was originally getting to before I had to get that off my chest. But so as far as being from Mississippi, you do a ton of traveling and stuff. What's one area that you're like, man, I wish I could get more time in the the Rockies, or I could get more time on the West Coast, or hey, this is my dream picture. What I know you probably have it. You're like, I there's a single image in my mind that I haven't been able to take yet. What would that be for you?
I think the Northwest. I went out there and filmed with DU a couple years ago, and it was just we're in Oregon and Washington and Idaho and that whole area. Yeah. I mean, it's just I haven't been to Montana and photographed, but honestly, I'd love to go back to Northwest. But the one place I haven't been that I really want to go is Alaska.
Yeah.
I got to go to Canada this year, which was cool. I wasn't.
No one ever says Maryland, Will. No one ever says Maryland.
nobody ever says Mississippi either. I assure you. I get so jealous when I see these photographers are in, the Northwest, Montana, and Wyoming and stuff, and the backdrops they have versus the Mississippi Delta. It's just. Yeah, there is no backdrop.
Yeah.
So
if you guys want some Phragmite and reeds in the background, we got you. Yeah. But no, that's awesome, man. And I hope we can actually make that come true, because one of the things we had been talking about is doing kind of a media retreat and getting everybody together and going out there and doing that stuff. So hopefully we can. And one of the things that Ed doesn't even know, I follow Ed on TikTok. Okay, because Ed started out with tips and tricks and things like that. I literally learned shutter speed from Ed's TikTok. I was terrible at it. If I would just keep scrolling through and taking an image of something until I just got close, but it really did help me. So what do you think about upping either your TikTok game, or we have a new blog on the Retay website? I would love to get your input a little bit more, because I know there's a ton of people like myself that love photography. Jared, our service tech, is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to different birds and species and plants and everything else. And we always talk about it, but he's just like, I'm not a great photographer. I just like to do it. I would love to see you put something together as far as like a tips and tricks segment, or maybe do a little blog on our blog about like, hey, this is the core knowledge you need to have to do waterfowl, or the core knowledge you're going to need to have for turkey hunting. Would you be up for something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The
cool.
TikTok thing, I started doing it last year, and I noticed, my business is social media, and so I've got to I had to go to the dark side and get a TikTok, and I just don't want to post, goofy stuff. That's just not me. I wanted to try. I was like, well, here's going to be my angle. I'm going to post some. I get questions every day on Instagram or Facebook or stuff about, hey, what's a good starter camera, or how do I do this? How do I do that? And I said, well, to me, these are simple questions, but there was a time in my career where these weren't simple questions, and that's where these people are at currently. And I said, well, I'm just going to start all the questions I get on Instagram. I'm just going to start answering them in videos and put them on TikTok. And I started doing it last fall, and then duck season happened, and so it kind of had to take a back seat. But I was actually writing down ideas for educational TikTok videos this morning, believe it or not. Some stuff I'm going to film here next few weeks.
Yeah, man, I'd be pumped for that. And this is personal for me because, like, I love to learn. And like you said, YouTube has been literally like my college of photography. I mean, there's everything you can want to find on there. What I was going to say was that one of your best resources? Because, I mean, I know there's more people that just be looking for it.
It still is. I drove home from Nebraska yesterday. We were out there filming a turkey hunt, and I bet it was like a 14-hour drive, and probably 6 to 8 hours of it I listened to YouTube educational, like photography stuff, like transitions with videos and stuff. Just, I mean, I'm constantly like, hey, what do I want to get better at? Yeah. And you can YouTube it, and there's people out there who are whatever you want to do. There's people on YouTube that have the answer and who are better than you are. They can teach you.
Absolutely. Which brings me, look, honestly, this is the best, I guess, our last podcast. Got a little off topic, got a little fired up about the bad things on social media, right? Yeah. This is the good side of social media. So this is us coming full circle. We're not always just pouty pants about being that guy, Donnie, on social media. So this really is showing the light of how great social media can be for you. And I do. I like I said, I watch your TikToks, and I've watched a bunch of stuff on YouTube and the Retay USA YouTube page. Maybe that's something that you can use, man, because we'd love to get some more stuff out there for guys, because all it's going to do is push everybody a little bit better, right? And give everybody a little bit different look at it. But we're pretty excited to do things like that this year. And our own Hunter Stevens, who's not even here yet, he may be here by the time this podcast comes out. He moves up to Maryland next week. His story is kind of the same thing of yours. He got out of college in the middle of COVID and had a job set up. Yeah. I mean, he's young, and had a job set up, ready to go to work. He was in the agribusiness field and everything was great. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, by the way, we're not hiring. It's a hiring freeze, right? So he picked a camera up. And that was like his first, go to it. And this is 2 years ago. I mean, he really did spend a lot of time in the past 2 years learning, and he's going to come work for us full time. And I can't wait for that, because I've got a bunch of, YouTube or TikTok dances that I want to get Will to do and put on our TikTok. So once we get that settled up, man, I would love to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people, because I read through comments a lot, and especially on your comments on Instagram and everything else, people are just searching for that knowledge, because I don't think there's a ton of outdoor photography. I think there's a lot of, like, if you want to take a nice picture of a longhorn sheep standing on the side of the mountain, but as far as like in the hunt and trying to capture a storyline, I don't think there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah, and I guess when I was first learning, I mean, I'm still learning, but when I first picked up a camera and started learning, I guess there's like so many things that I wish I had known that I could have progressed so much faster. Yeah. I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is when somebody sends me a message on Instagram, I try to answer everyone. And like, cause I know if somebody's passionate about photography and wants to get better, I'll help them any way I can. Yep. And, so I kind of try to think back about, man, what subjects or questions that I have then that I wish I had known the answer to, and try to give that information to people to help them get better at, because if you're not getting better at something, you're gonna, I feel like people would give it up and get bored with it, and so if you're constantly progressing, and you're gonna get better and better at it and enjoy it more. Absolutely. It's like golf. Golf's not a fun game, but when you see that little glimmer of hope, that one good shot around that you hit,
it keeps you coming back. And I feel like it's the same thing in photography. I mean, like you said, man, I'll take 3,000 pictures to get one good one. That's that, and I love it, and it's fun for me. And I wish I could take 3 pictures and have 3 really good ones, but that's just not happening for me. But I'm super happy that you would be in for that, because I think it'd be a wealth of knowledge for people. Who is some of your influences? Did you ever look at somebody and was like, man, I wish I could just shoot stuff like this guy?
Yeah, I mean, there was, when I first started, like, it's crazy. Like, Todd Manning he doesn't really post a whole lot anymore, but man, his duck and dog pictures I remember years ago were just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Dylan Farrell from the videography side.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, Dylan's, in my opinion, the best out there, and he's helped me a bunch early on. Like, I'd constantly call him with questions when I first got into the video side of it. He actually answered the phone one time and said, "Sony customer service, how can I help
you?" That's awesome.
And he's like, "Look, man, I'm gonna have to limit you to like 3 questions a day." And I was like, "All right." But,
well, it just shows how passionate you were for it and trying to get going.
Yeah, and having, that's the thing, man. You gotta watching YouTube and stuff and reading all you can. It's great, but having somebody that can really explain it to you and help you has been, there's guys, Nate that filmed for Mojo helped me a bunch. The first year I met him, first year I started taking pictures, and I showed him a couple, and he's like, "Man, it's good," and he showed me a couple things that really helped early on. So
do you have to have $10,000 worth of gear to go out and take a good picture?
No. You can, it helps, it's like anything else. But you can take a really good picture with just about any camera and any lens. If you know how it all works.
Right.
I think that's the thing when you're asking earlier, what advice I would give people is just really learn how light and your camera works. And if you can really grasp how a picture comes together and what everything controls, it'll really help get the picture to come out like you're picturing it in your mind.
Gotcha.
And like I said, you were talking about shutter speed, and that was always the hardest thing for me to figure out.
It's the worst. Hate it.
And it seems so simple to me now. But at the time, I remember years and years ago, it was like, man, I can't get this right. And learning how to use it, I think once you got shutter speed mastered, it's easy from there.
Yeah. You'd be surprised at how many pictures of just blank screens I've taken because the shutter speed was so far off that it wasn't even like, I would literally just have a black screen or a white screen.
So, a buddy of mine, his son's in college. His name's Kyle Reed. He's gotten into photography, and he's actually, I let him borrow one of my cameras and one of my bigger lenses, and he was out taking some duck pictures and stuff, and he called me initially and was like, "Hey man, something's wrong with this camera." I said, "What's up?" And he said, "Man, I'm taking pictures in solid black." And I said, "What?" I said, "Well, one of 2 things happen. Either A, you got the lens cap on, which I don't think so, or B," I said, "What's your shutter speed set at?" And he said, "Oh, it's like 1/4,000." I was like, "Yeah, that's the problem. You're going to need to drop that down to 1/500. And I was like, "Now I'll take a picture." And he took it, and he's like, "Oh, there it is."
There it is. Yeah, I constantly do that. I'll go scroll. If you ever, like, Will's definitely seen me take pictures before. Yeah. I'll take the first one, and my face just must say the story. It's just like, oh, and I just start scrolling one way or the other, just try to figure it out. And it's such a resource to have. I mean, to know what you're doing because sometimes you only get a split second, right?
Yeah, that's when you're filming wildlife and stuff. It's like you said, the person coming down the runway, or if you're filming, a shoot for somebody, you can move something a little bit here, a little bit there. Or you can, hey, do that again. When you're filming wildlife, it's not like you can tell that duck to, hey, go back and do that again.
I wish I could.
You've got to be ready. And honestly, I think, like, especially with wildlife, it's a lot of practice. I mean, I spend more hours than I'd like to admit sitting and taking pictures of ducks, but it helps being able to, being a duck hunter, I can kind of anticipate what a duck's about to do, whether it's which way they're going to come in, this and that. And so it helps me anticipate what's about to happen so I can have my camera ready to get that shot. And getting focused on ducks in flight can be challenging, but the more and more you do it, the easier it is. And you're able to get them in focus and get them, frozen versus missing a shot.
Gotcha. So, and as we wrap up here, and this will be the final question because this is the final part of everything that you do. I actually have gotten asked this before. I put one picture up one time on my Instagram. Probably the best picture I've ever taken in my life. The first question was, what editing software do you use? And that was like, like I rely on editing software because I need it, right? I need to adjust exposure. I need to adjust all those things because I'm not very good at it. Do you rely heavily on post-production? Do you rely heavily on a Photoshop or a Lightroom or something else?
No, honestly, I don't even know how to use Photoshop. I've never used Photoshop in my life. I have a girl that works for me that is really good at Illustrator and Photoshop, and even the simplest thing like taking the background, taking a logo with making it transparent, I don't even know how to do, and I just sent it to her. And I was actually thinking about it on the drive home yesterday. I was like, I've got to get better at doing something with Photoshop. But I've always, I don't know, I've never, I use Lightroom Classic to answer that question, but I've never been hugely, I don't really do a whole lot of big edits on my stuff. I think like Jared Lewis is a buddy of mine, and he unbelievable photographer, but his editing skills, he'll take a picture and I'm just blown away by it, and he'll send me the original. I'm like, man, how in the world did you do that? Like, it's so good. Yeah. And it's something I've actually, since being around him and seeing his stuff, I've actually started playing with doing a little bit more edits to my stuff to try to get different looks.
Presets are my friends. I use presets more than anything. That's just that's my knowledge base is presets.
Yeah, I've got like two that come with Lightroom that I'll use some, but I've never spent a whole lot of time doing big edits, and I don't know what, it's not, there's no rhyme or reason why that's what it is. I just haven't. But after seeing some stuff that some guys can do, and I'm just like, man, maybe I need to spend a little more time learning how to edit these, because like I said, he'll show me an edit, and I'm just blown away. I'm like, man, if I knew how to do that.
Imagine how good I'd be.
I was like, man, I could really do some cool stuff. But,
absolutely. Well,
that's one of the things, I guess.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was saying that's one of the things that I'm currently trying to work at getting better at is doing a little bit different edits on Lightroom and stuff.
Gotcha. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, find all your pictures. Obviously, they can open up one of 100 magazines, but where can they find you on social media, find all of the projects you're working on? I know you've been a huge part of the Retay family for us, and we appreciate that more than you'll ever imagine, and we've become really good friends and probably talk more than anybody that does any media creation for Retay than you do. You and I talk probably once or twice a week all the time. Tell us where everybody can find your work at.
Let's see, Instagram, TikTok, and I think Twitter is at EdWall81. Lost Break, our series is on Mossy Oak Go, also on YouTube.
Yep.
And Instagram. We just finished filming in Nebraska, and it's going to be a good one. I think we got 7 turkey kills on.
That's awesome.
So it'll be a good one. And Crash Landing Outdoors on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
You can even find Crash Landing on the Retay YouTube as its own series. We're hosting it there.
Yep. And I want to say, Jesse, I know this is it's gonna embarrass you a little bit, but I wanted to seriously tell you thank you for everything you've done for me. I'm not saying
you're the one taking the pictures. I'm the one that sits over here and just makes it all look cool.
I know, but I'm like literally, I've worked with everybody I've worked with for the most part in the outdoor industry has been fabulous. I mean, everybody's been great.
Absolutely.
But I've told countless people that, you personally are the best person that I've worked with in the outdoor industry.
Man, I appreciate that very much.
The company and you have just been, there's nobody else I'd rather work with. And so I'm so fortunate that y'all let me be a part of Retay, and can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Oh man, thank you for that. Honestly, like it's one of those things where you find good people and you work together, and you know, it's just, it fit, man. It fit from day one, and we're the ones who are honored, because honestly, without you, we're putting up cell phone pictures, bud. I can tell you that right now, because we're nothing without you and all the guys. You know, we talk about Matt Harrison, and you know, Hunter's going to be coming up and working for us, and Mark Wheat, and all these guys that do all this content creation for us. You know, you guys are the one with the minds to do it, right? You guys are the ones with the initiative that goes out and puts all this together for us, and it's just cool to see, man. And I'm blown away every time I get a Ed Wall text message of a Dropbox link. I always know that, like, yep, here we go. Like, there's gonna be something in there that's gonna blow it away. And honestly, even for all of our, you know, a lot of people probably don't even realize that we have to use a lot of imagery just to create like ad space, right? And print ad and digital ad and all this kind of different stuff, which, by the way, we're not professionals at, but it makes it so much easier having guys like yourself, and you especially, because you know this for a fact. I mean, we have, you know, just our print ads. There's not a single print ad out there right now that's not an Ed Wall picture that, you know, are going to the commercial spots that we're putting on TV and stuff like that. We're using all this content, and here I go with that word again, but we're using all the video, we're using the pictures that you create, man, and it just makes it so much easier for us, and we appreciate that more than you'll ever know. So I love the friendship that's been created out of this, and you're just a top tier guy, man, and we appreciate it. And I'm telling you right now, my golf game is going to get a little stronger this year. So when you're ready for it, let me know.
I'm ready, man. Just let me know when. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, hey, because this was the title of podcast number 2 for us, Who the Hell is Jim Caesar?
Right.
Ed, not only when he's listening to YouTube tutorials on photography, listens to this guy in the truck a lot when he travels, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that dude's unbelievable.
That dude is unbelievable. So, hey, man, appreciate it again, Ed. We'll let it out of here, and Jim Caesar, take us away.
Raised in the South, I come up from nothing, I figured it out. They say when I sing, I'm the voice of the South. Give thanks to the Lord, cause I'm making it out. I can't believe I'm living my dream. Early morning flights, the skies are filled up with these whistling wings. Sights that dreams are made of. Look at God's creation. Dust coming in as we struggle to load. Kid number 2 is a hell of a load. Shots going off like they dropping the hood. It's so cold and my call keeps sticking. I'm being precise with the notes I'm picking. My lead is true, so no duck I'm missing. Full choke, so I'm good at a distance. I shoot a retake, I shoot a retake. I shoot a retake, I shoot a retake. Rush up the blind, ain't wasting no time, yeah, we gotta grind. Hitting the trees and break a few digs and passing to me. Ain't no Beyonce, but these ducks in formation. This ain't no heist, but I swear green's what we chasing. Hey, you ever drove a boat in the morning? Can't think, can't see, can't breathe, cause the cold in the fall. 2 strokes and farthest. Strut up your engine, get ready to party. It's a dangerous run to the hole. You know where I'm from, so you know how it goes. 25 Mercs and 25 Zooks. Outboard spit smokes when it's cold. This is a timber run, something like timber run. Dodging these logging these trees. Running so fast like we racing for cash in the water. So cold and it's starting to freeze. Could you believe the sight that you see with your eyes when the matters descend through the trees? My soul is at peace. I get so high when the ducks start to fly. I can see what the angel could see. Please do not blame it on me. The ducks don't commit, then we rearranging the digs. Come on, let's turn up the heat. They still ain't committed, then we got a motion to digs. Block swinging left, block swinging right, but keep them in sight. And if we're not doing it right, no second tangent, we just might ruin the flight. We kicking water, that's dropping hard. Tell them kick hard. One hand gave in, but still got 10. Working circle, got me nervous. Ain't no stress, we on the X. Watch them banking, swerving, curving. We gotta finish these ducks. They coming in, watch them run straight out of luck. I'm yelling, take them, guns, I'm blazing. 1 + 10 came in, amen. That's a whole lot of mallards. Now 1 left out, we screaming, shout. 1 shot before man limit, I won't forget it, yeah. Now we headed back to the ramp. Ducks in the bow of the boat. Chest sticking out like a champ. Chest sticking out like a champ. Raised in the South, I come up from nothing, I figured it out. They say when I sing, I'm the voice of the South. Give thanks to the Lord, cause I'm making it out. I can't believe I'm living my dream. Early morning flights, the skies are filled up with these whistling winds.